Hello and welcome inside Alley Talk. I'm not the fish you were expecting, but I'm here with you today. Yes, that's right. This is Chris Babos, Philadelphia Sports Network. Kyle Fisher on the way, making some travel moves today, and we'll try to get here for Alley Talk. But you've got me. Yes, that's right. Chris Babos here to talk about the Philadelphia Phillies, and what an insane week in Philadelphia it's been for the baseball team as they put up an insane amount of runs 11 runs on Wednesday against Seattle, a paltry 4 runs on Tuesday, and then everything started at the bank. 20 hits or over 20 hits and 12 runs against the Seattle Mariners on Monday in what was just an absolutely incredible week or start to the week, rather, at Citizens Bank Park in South Philadelphia. The Phillies will be back there tonight. They're getting ready to start a 3-game set with the NL East division rival Washington Nationals this evening and this weekend. A rematch of a couple of games that we saw last weekend in Washington, D.C. at Nationals Park. One game that went all right for the Phillies, one game that their offense didn't get it going, but we'll touch base on the Phillies offense. The offensive display that they put up against Seattle, which is absolutely insane, and something we haven't seen a lot around here. Thank you very much for Little G for checking in. Big fan of Eagle season. Yeah, you know what? We're hopeful that week one for the Birds will go well. Keep your eye out here for Philadelphia Sports Network and Flipping the Birds, covering your Eagles talk all week long here on PSN's YouTube, and definitely an exciting time in Philadelphia sports across the board. But we're here for baseball, as Rod likes to check in. I'm not going to put that one on the screen because family friendly broadcast here. But we're here to talk about the Philadelphia Phillies, who find themselves in first place. That's right. Philadelphia Phillies in first place in the NL East, 7 games up on a suddenly struggling New York Mets squad that has really just has found different ways to lose ball games recently, including a 9-3 loss to the Nationals last night, a 5-4 loss to the Nationals on Wednesday. So the Philadelphia Phillies have a huge opportunity here this weekend and next week when they travel up to Citi Field to take on the New York Mets, in a place that you know everybody wishes Chase Utley was still on the team because man, it was fun to watch him play at Citi Field. But the Philadelphia Phillies, as they start to wind down um, the season here, have a huge opportunity as they've created some space based off of their wins, and have that huge opportunity now with a magic number that sits around. If I saw today, it was 35 or 33, something in that range. Great article by PSN's Sean Nestor on the topic of the schedule and kind of how that all breaks down for Philadelphia. But if you clicked on that thumbnail, which I know you did if you're sitting here looking at this pretty face, that would be the Philadelphia Phillies offense. And as of right now, that begins and ends with Trey Turner. Trey Turner, the Phillies leadoff hitter, has been absolutely phenomenal over the last 2 weeks specifically. I mean, all August, he's been absolutely insane. He's hitting 378, 31 hits in, I think it was 90 plate appearances this month, which are some MLB The Show numbers. It's absolutely insane for Trey Turner. Over the last 2 weeks, 462 batting average, 30 hits in his last 30 hits in his last 65 at bats. And then somehow found another way to turn it up even more over the last week. 378 batting average. Um, I'm sorry, 618 batting average with 21 hits and 34 at bats over the last week. Hit his first home run at Citizens Bank Park on Monday night. I was lucky to be in attendance just as a fan, sitting up in the 300 section. So I got to watch what we thought was the 1500th home run by Trey Turner. But that ended up being changed. Turner was credited with a single during the series against Nationals last weekend, which then made the home run at Citizens Bank Park 1501. Go figure. But still a big moment for Trey just to kind of get the proverbial monkey off of his back in that situation where he had 15 plus home runs on the road. And really had been swinging the bat well at Citizens Bank Park. It was nothing that he was doing. The ball just hadn't carried for him, hadn't left. A couple of balls that went to the wall and stayed in the ballpark. So, but Trey Turner is just absolutely electric. I had it up here. Let me see if I can get it up again real quick. His last 5 games are absolutely discussion worthy for Trey Turner. 3 for 4 against the Nationals in a 2-0 shutout loss. So he got on base. Unfortunately, the Phillies offense was just cold last Saturday. And they're going to have to go. And we'll get into this a little bit when we preview the Nationals matchup coming up. But Cade Savali shut them down. 7 innings. I think he gave up 6 hits, and the Nationals didn't allow a run in a 2-0 shutout. But Turner had 3 hits in that ball game. He was 3 for 4. Next day, scored 3 runs and another 3 for 4 performance in a wild 11-9 win last Sunday. One of the craziest games we've seen all season in Philadelphia. And then he was just on another world in the series against Seattle. He did have one, I guess, down game, if you want to call 1 for 4 down, but 4 for 6 in the first game against Seattle, 1 for 4, and then 5 for 6, 3 runs scored, 2 RBIs. Just an absolutely incredible performance on Wednesday night for Trey Turner as he continues to just pick up hits. If you're counting along with me, it's 16 hits there in his last 5 games. That's pretty incredible for your leadoff hitter. Rod checks in. Nola was awful in that Saturday game. Down there in Washington, and I will agree he was awful in the 3rd inning when they weren't able to get any outs, but things looked okay early for Nola. He looked decent from the reports, mostly from Corey Naito down there in Lehigh Valley during his rehab starts, but Nola has not been good this season, really. So, when you take a look at the stats, 1-7, a 6.92 ERA. That's right. Yes, that's right. It was on Sunday. My bad. 1-7 record. It has not been a good season for Aaron Nola, but right now, especially with the Wheeler injury, is somebody that the Phillies are going to need to fix things and get things right. He's going to be a big pitcher. Of course, Christopher Sanchez right there in that Cy Young race was right there with Zach Wheeler. So now Sanchez is going to get those big minutes. You've got Nola there. You've got Ranger Suarez still. Taijuan Walker's pitched really well, which we can touch on in a minute. I will agree with that. We were definitely sweating watching them blow a 6-run lead, especially after how that game started. And just a Phillies offense that really was precluded what they did against Seattle. The Phillies had a fairly good series in the split against Washington, even though they only walked away with the 2 wins. But that's baseball for you. That is how that goes. So the Philadelphia Phillies, Trey Turner, definitely has been on another level, and Kyle Schwarber as well. Kyle Schwarber right now is must-see TV. Every single at bat, whether it's trying to find the at bat online, catching highlights from when he inevitably goes yard again. 45 home runs, 109 RBIs, which is tied atop the National League. 253 batting average, which, for what he's been able to give you from that DH spot, it's pretty incredible. 47's his high, with the Philadelphia Phillies in 23 at 46 and 22. But bear in mind, there's still 6 weeks of baseball left to play. And there's an outside chance that by the end of August, he's rounding third base and heading towards 50 home runs. Because there's an argument he could hit 2 or 3 in this series against a rough Nationals bullpen. The New York Mets coming up next week. Our pitching staff has really struggled to get anyone out. So Kyle Schwarber continues to put the bat on the ball, and he could very well being eye up that 50 home run mark, and even eyeing, I believe, is 58 is the record for Phillies home runs. Ryan Howard. I should know that as a Phillies anyway. So there you have it. The Philadelphia Phillies and their offense will look to kind of keep things going, and continue to put up base hits. 2 hits of 2 games of 20 base hits, which is something that they've never done before. It's just pretty wild when you think about that. I mentioned that article from Corey Naito, and he had a tweet from Jason Stark in that article that basically broke down how that hasn't really happened in Philadelphia before. I'm pulling it up now. Phillies got 21. So this was Jason Stark on August 20th, which was Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Phillies got 21 hits on Monday. They got 20 hits today on Wednesday. In the modern era, the last time before this, the Phillies had 2 games in the same series with 20-plus hits would be never. So there you go. 40 hits for the Phillies. Over 41 hits over 2 games is pretty wild. And it's definitely something that is encouraging to see. However, Phillies fans want to see that in October. They want to see that happen in September, not necessarily in late August. It's great in late August. Please don't get me wrong. Particularly for the fans down at Citizens Bank Park, like myself, who was lucky enough to be there, watch them score 6 runs in a second inning, where I think everyone but one player in the starting lineup had a hit before the end of the second inning. That is fun baseball, let me tell you. Trey Turner being able to smack that home run and put the Phillies out to a big lead when the lineup turned over. Marsh able to get a big hit to keep things going in that game. So, it's one of those things that when the bottom of the lineup is able to produce and contribute, it's going to go a very long way to keeping the Phillies offense very consistent. And really, that's all the Phillies pitchers have needed this season. Yes, Zach Wheeler's not currently in the Phillies plans. It's very unfortunate. Prayers up to Zach Wheeler, to his family, because having a blood clot in your shoulder is extremely worrisome, especially for somebody that has family, that has multiple kids. That's a real world issue right there. That's more important than baseball. So I'm very thrilled to hear that Wheeler is able to get his surgery, that everything went well, that he checked in with Rob Thompson. Of course, every Phillies fan in this area wants Zach Wheeler healthy for Red October. That goes without saying. But in this circumstance, when you're dealing with a health ailment as serious as a blood clot, and the fact that it was in his shoulder and, it didn't get any worse, is a good thing. If you've been watching LA Talk for any length of time, you know that Kyle Fisher and I had talked a couple of times, I believe, and compared Zach Wheeler's starts to the John Cena experience right now in WWE with his countdown clock on and his retirement very swiftly coming up. This isn't a WWE podcast, I get that. But John Cena retiring in about 3 months or so from WWE, which is pretty groundbreaking if you've followed wrestling in any capacity. Even if you haven't, you likely at least know the name. So we compared Zach Wheeler and the limited number of starts that you would think he has remaining given the 2 years left on his contract. Whether or not that's what Dave Dombrowski feels the Phillies window is, that's what I loosely consider the window for this Phillies team, particularly with Harper, with Trey Turner on board. Kyle Schwarber, obviously the free agent this offseason. I don't know how you let him walk, but, going to be a pretty tough argument if he smacks 60 home runs, trying to get him to sign a hometown discount. I will say, I forget exactly what article I read, but the one thing Philadelphia does have going in its favor is a bit of sentimental emotions for Schwarber. He started his family here in Philadelphia. He has a lot of good memories last couple of off seasons, seeing Red October in full effect as the Phillies went to the World Series in 22. So it's going to be a very interesting negotiation for Dombrowski, for the Phillies, and for Kyle Schwarber. But this team definitely looks a whole heck of a lot different if Kyle Schwarber is not hitting in that lineup next season. JT Realmuto is a free agent. He's played fantastic this year. He's been one of the catalysts to the high-powered Phillies offense recently. And when JT Realmuto is hitting very well in the middle of that lineup, that's a good thing for the Philadelphia Phillies because, then you're less reliant on Nick Castellanos and his first pitch swinging mentality. Which, sidebar here, if I was a pitcher, I would never throw Nick Castellanos a strike right now on the first pitch. I don't know if they take sports bet. I don't do sports betting. Not that I specifically have a problem with it. I just don't engage in it. But if they're taking bets on whether or not Nick Castellanos is swinging on that first pitch, that is a sure thing you're going to get in betting currently because he's always hacking at that first pitch. Now, granted, if I was hitting over 300 on the first pitching of that bat, I would probably be swinging for the fences too. But as somebody that has enjoyed the way Trey Turner's approached the plate, working counts, getting on base, getting singles, getting base hits, I know Nick Castellanos isn't expected to do the same, nor is he necessarily capable of stringing together the level of hits that Turner has recently. But with that said, laying off of that first pitch, normally a ball, could go a long way in helping him not feel so rushed in most of his. Now, I guess I shouldn't say he feels rushed because I haven't talked to him about it. But starting behind 0-1 in most of your at-bats has got to be a little rough. So, but JT Realmuto playing really well recently behind the dish, which is always important, especially with the caliber of lineup that you've got. And Rod checks in again. Yeah, Cassie will get hot again. He'll make it look, and I hope he does. I would love to see Castellanos get hot the last 2-3 weeks of September. That NLDS run, I believe it was 23, could have been 22. I don't know. It all kind of No, it definitely wasn't 23 because that was Mets. I think it was the 2022 NLDS where he just absolutely raked. Uh, that's the kind of Castellanos that the Phillies and Rob Thompson need, hitting in that fifth spot, hitting in that sixth spot, wherever he ends up in that lineup. And credit to Nick. He played 162 games last year. He's had several games off, whether that's his decision or not, which it hasn't been, but he definitely is one of those players that is used to playing every day. And for the betterment of the team, this is how it's been presented to him. He's had that opportunity to, uh, you know, get some rest. So maybe that will help Nick Castellanos as we head towards the end of the season. But you generally speaking know, based off how the season has played out, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper are going to do what they do at the top of that Phillies lineup. And it's going to be really hard for pitchers to keep runs off the board if players like Castellanos, like Realmuto, like Stott, like Bohm, get things going. We haven't said the name Harrison Bader yet. 21 minutes into this podcast. And he's somebody that can make a big difference in center field for the Phillies. Rob Thompson struggling a bit with the platoon situation and trying to find Bader the consistent at-bats that he was getting every day in Minnesota. That has allowed him to get one of the best seasons of offensive seasons of his career. So, it's one of those things that there's a lot of moving pieces in an offense. And as you get into September, you would hope that Rob Thompson is able to get things settled and get things situated to where he has a bit more consistency in that outfield rotation, whether that's, Bader in center, platooning Kepler and Castellanos out and right. Marsh out and left has been fairly good. Marsh can also play right. Rojas has played well since he was sent down to AAA. Now, whether or not he'll bring that back up to the MLB if and when he gets back here, whether that's this year or next year, but the Phillies definitely have some options, but they have to figure out the best way to deal with the logjam, because they went and acquired another everyday outfielder and never took one out the lineup. Max Kepler signed here in the offseason to play every day. There's definitely an argument that his play hasn't been worthy to start him every day. He's gotten, I think, a little better as the season's rolled on. With that being said, Marsh has outplayed him, in my personal opinion, which is why I feel that Brandon Marsh should have that opportunity out in left field, because he's swung the bat really, really well since coming back from his IR stint earlier this summer. I also like his defensive capabilities out there in left. Justin Crawford, another outfielder still hanging around in AAA. Whether or not we're going to see him when rosters expand. Everyone was sitting on August, I believe it was 15th, and service time and how all of that impacts things. But there's no way that you can sit in and say that his speed is not something that would help the Phillies lineup even as a pinch runner in late game situations. But is that the best for his development? That's the true question, because it's not necessarily 2025 for Crawford and the Philadelphia Phillies. Is he going to be able to stick in the outfield in 26 and beyond? That's precisely why Dombrowski didn't trade him at the deadline, because I can guarantee, I can't guarantee, I don't have sources that have specifically told me this, but I'm pretty sure a whole bunch of GMs asked for Crawford alongside of Painter, alongside of Miller. And those deadline acquisitions that the Phillies ended up making when they brought in Duran and when they brought in Harrison Bader. So it's definitely one of those things. If you didn't catch the news earlier today, I thought this was a pretty cool move by the NBC Sports Philadelphia broadcasting team. John Clark had put out that the Phillies will now be showing the Johan Duran entrance live from the ballpark. They did specifically mention that it was night games, so it will be interesting to see kind of how those day games operate. And I guess if he'll eat that, it's not necessarily as easy as, oh, hey, let's just show, these new, this new entrance. There's a lot of logistics that are involved. There's a lot that are involved with, commercial breaks and sponsorships and whatnot. But that's up for the Phillies and their broadcasting and NBC Sports to figure out. But I thought it as a really cool opportunity to bring fans at home into that ballpark experience that now is a specialty at Citizens Bank Park. And in what I couldn't plan to be a better segue, we've got our own debuting closer here on Alley Talk, and that would be our guy, Kyle Fisher. Kyle, how you doing, buddy? You're muted, pal.
Great start, Chris. I'll tell you what, travel with a toddler, never easy. So left later than I wanted to. A 3-hour trip quickly turned into 3 hours 45. So, but I'm here. Let's not, if there's any police listening, please ignore the next part. I was averaging like 85 miles an hour on the way home. So, hopefully no police officers or my parents are not listening, but
you're safe. More importantly, the toddler is safe.
Yeah, you got to take it easy. It would have been 90 if there was no toddler in the car. That's all.
We handled all bathroom breaks, which is incredibly important. But more importantly, Kyle, Johan Duran, the closer for the Philadelphia Phillies. NBC Sports, as I brought you in, announcing they'll be showing those entrances live from the ballpark, hopefully in the bottom of the ninth as the Phillies close out games over the next 6 weeks. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, they listened to the fans. There was an uproar about it, and they decided to make an adjustment. It's easy for big business to not care about those things and take the extra time to get the ad break. But baseball has not had this unique thing to it for a long time. And as closers have started to develop these sort of entrances and light shows, his in particular is very special. Minnesota basically, as part of the trade, handed over everything that they had to the Phillies graphics team, which is incredible. Great partnership and teamwork on their behalf. But fans want to see it. And that's how exciting it is. The game is entertainment as much as it is anything else. You want to talk about the game being diminished or whatever, to me, it's entertainment factor. And this guy is not only lights out, but he has one of the most unique entrances, turns it into a spectacle. My argument was, I talked about this when I was on Sean Brace's show earlier this week, is damn sure that the national teams, if the Phillies are in the playoffs and have a chance to bring Duran in at night, they were going to forego an ad break and show this. So why not take advantage, get some extra eyes in there? A little bit less complaining online never hurts anybody either. So I think that's a really solid move from them. They can spin it as fan service. Hey, we heard you loud and clear, and we got you.
And it's a really customer savvy move in a business that really is about taking care of fans. They need to get fans to buy into 120 ball games a year. Exactly. So I think it's a good move. I believe it was Amy Fadul put out a good tweet that was like, it's not necessarily that easy, but I'm glad that they've taken it under themselves and listened to what the Phillies fans want. So Kyle, half an hour into this podcast, they've listened to me for 25 minutes. We talked about the Phillies offense. We talked about Trey Turner and his just absolute tirade over the last week. But talk to me a little bit about your experience in watching the Philadelphia Phillies put up 29 runs against the Seattle Mariners in 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, pretty incredible stuff. I like a lot what Trey Turner said on Monday after the very first game. It was he goes, one guy cannot be expected to pick up the slack from losing a guy like Zach Wheeler. He's an elite talent. You couldn't expect Aaron Nola to slide right in. You can't expect the entire. Everybody has to raise their game a little bit. We can all do a little bit better, and they really showed it. We saw a similar feeling after the Texas series, but Wheeler was still considered healthy at that time, or at least there wasn't this major health concern, and that's well beyond the field. Obviously this is a very serious situation. We hope that he recovers first and foremost. But Trey not only was the vocal leader saying that after a strong showing on Monday, he continued to show it by example the rest of the series. And that's what you want from a guy who's going to be here for the next 9 years after this season, who's making a lot of money. You want to see him start to really embrace that leadership role the way that Harper did a year or two in, the way that Kyle has the last couple of years. Not only saying the right things, but acting and playing the game the right way. Something that I think it's been talked about enough, but maybe not hyped up enough. He's done that all season long. That's something that Trey Turner came into this season changing his game to help this team. Yep. And now he's evolving a little bit more, getting himself out of some of the struggles that he faced in the middle of the season, like everybody does. And he's back to being the catalyst for that offense, if you will, or at least the guy who gets things started. So it's exciting series. Did you talk much about the pitching though, Chris? Because that was the thing that really amazed me was the pitching performance.
Yeah, I hadn't really touched a whole lot on the pitching. Phillies definitely did look good from the bump. But yeah, I'll go ahead and let you take the lead there. I was in attendance on Monday as a fan, so I saw Ranger Suarez absolutely dominate. So Raw was in the area. I made the absolutely horrible fan decision to leave in the 5th inning. Phillies were up, I think 6-0 at that point already. So I missed both Bryce bombs. We absolutely ripped the cover off the ball. But in my defense, I was humming watching the game in like the 7th. So I still got to see everything. I'm 20 minutes from the ballpark. And I didn't feel like dealing with 2 stadiums emptying out.
I thought you were going to say you hopped over to Raw. I was going to say, were you part of the dirty dog?
I wanted to, but we didn't have the funds for that, and the credentials didn't exactly work out. But maybe next time.
We're working on it.
Maybe next time.
Chris at the forefront of PSN's wrestling coverage.
Suarez. Well, keep an eye out. We've got AEW coming to Philadelphia for an action extended stay. But again, I talked enough about wrestling. We covered John Cena and how we compared Zach Wheeler and John Cena. We've covered that already. Go back and watch it, Kyle. Although you were part of the conversation, so I'm telling you.
Corey's calling you out, Chris.
Yeah, honestly, it is a violation.
I agree, Corey.
Absolutely.
I agree.
It's funny because usually I'm definitely not one of those people that leaves, but I didn't feel like 3 hours in traffic. And
understood. Yeah, so. But the one, so for me, the thing about the strikeouts, right? We talk about this team's propensity to when they face good pitching, seem to struggle. Strikeouts pile up, even though their strikeout rate is lower overall in the season than it was at this point last year. It has ticked up a little bit recently, but especially early in the year, how much they avoided the strikeouts. And the big thing for me with this one is 46 strikeouts by the pitching staff. 46 in 3 games. It's the most they've ever had in a 3-game set.
Ooh.
On the flip side, Seattle's also supposed to be one of the best pitching staffs in the league, one of the best starting staffs in the league. The Phillies only struck out 15 times. That's right, folks. Let me repeat so you can hear me. The Phillies only struck out 15 times. And they struck out the opposition 46. I was worried that especially with the high-powered additions of Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez, that Seattle was going to come in here, used to their huge stadium, and just pummel the ball left and right across these 3 games. And this pitching staff, without Zach Wheeler, with a struggling returning Aaron Nola, Luzardo inconsistent, Suarez inconsistent as of late, those 3 lefties stepped up, big time, shut down Cal Raleigh, one of the best performances against a home run leader in the history of baseball. And they only strike out 15 times on the other side.
1 for 12 was Cal Riley.
Insane.
In that series.
The plus 31 K differential is the best, the second best in Phillies history. You know what's crazier? It's the second best in history in a 3-game set. That's right. The only team to have a better strikeout ratio, plus minus, against their opponents is the Phillies themselves back in the 60s.
If that doesn't deserve someone to smash that like button, I don't know what does.
Come on.
Give us that like, give us that subscription. You get well, I wouldn't call that an exclusive stat, but you get some extensive stats here.
You want to talk about a team stepping up in a moment of adversity, and that's what they did this week.
Yep.
Now, the big test is obviously how are they going to perform after that? We saw how strong they looked. They had a really good run against some good teams, some American League challenges. They go down to Texas, sweep them. They're playing small ball. They really look like they're firing on all cylinders, and then struggle against Cincy, lose 3 in a row across a Cincy and a Washington series, split with Washington, and you're like, man, yes, Cincinnati has some good pitching, but lesser competition, and all of a sudden they look pedestrian after looking like, I mean, people were talking about their World Series odds changing just because of the sweep in Texas. And then they come out here again, Seattle, fighting for that AL West, and Philly takes care of business once again on the heels of some bad news regarding Zach Wheeler. So to see them step up this way is huge. Obviously a big challenge coming up with 10 against their division and then 3 against the best team in baseball record-wise, and then 7 more against your division, 7 more against your division after that. So 17 divisional games of their next 20. It's going to be a rough run, but those types of series against a strong team in Seattle is the thing that can really galvanize you and get you running the rest of the way. It's a little crazy to me, but it's
you have 7 straight now upcoming against. Sorry, not even 10 straight against the NL East.
Yep.
Upcoming, you got home against Washington for this 3-game set, travel up to New York, and then a 4-game set at home against Atlanta. So in reality, the Phillies could make some serious damage in this NL East race by the end of August and really kind of help put New York away, particularly if they're able to take 2 of 3 or sweep the Mets. Right now sitting on top of a 7-game lead. So for the Phillies, that's definitely a big opportunity to make sure that they are able to they control their destiny already in the NL East. Here's really an opportunity for them to take ownership of it.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and you have a chance with the Mets struggling the way that they have. You have a chance if you can take care of business in Washington, against Washington rather this weekend, even if it's 2 of 3, you win the series against Washington. If you can beat the Mets, you have a chance to almost bury them. Now, these two franchises are very familiar with catching each other late in the season. They're both familiar with big losses in a short amount of time. We all remember 2007, 2008, where the Phillies were able to catch the Mets. Phillies have also dropped a lot. I think what was it, 1981? Or no, I think it was the 64 season. Speaking of 64, I was talking about a lot of classic years with my dad and brother this weekend. So apologies if I get them confused, but I think 64 it was like 6.5 with 10 to play or something like that. It was something ridiculous, just like the 8 with 8:40, 8 with 18 left to play when the Phillies caught the Mets to kind of spark that World Series era with Utley, Rollins, and Howard. So you have a chance to do something against the Mets in these next couple of weeks and hope that they continue to falter elsewhere and really separate yourself from that team. Not that it's a guarantee that you bury them. They have the talent, but their starting pitching struggles are very real, very apparent, something that I thought that they needed to address more at the deadline. They didn't, and it's showing. A lot of injuries included. Don't worry about that, or don't ignore that, rather. But there's a history there. Both fan bases are very jaded and very worried. It doesn't matter how much of a lead you have. But if you get yourself a double-digit lead early in September, mid-September, you're feeling pretty darn good about that, even if you're not pushing the Milwaukee Brewers. So we'll have to see, like you said, 7 games right now. If they can keep adding to that over these next couple weeks, I'm feeling pretty good.
And in reality, when you look at the standings, the Brewers are still within earshot. They were extremely hot. They haven't been as much over their last. They're 6-4 over the last 10, but I mean they had won 12, 13 straight or something like that.
14 in a row.
14, yeah. So 80 and 48. They have a 6-game lead on the Phillies, but I mean, 4-game losing streak. While the Phillies pick up 3 wins, that'll make a difference. So that they're still important. With that being said, we know how important it is for the Phillies to be at home in the playoffs. So, it definitely going to be a situation. And don't forget the Brewers had a chance last year. They were ousted by a red hot Met team that dispatched the Phillies as well, and that Brewers Mets series still was to date was one of the wildest endings I've ever seen.
That was fun.
Trying
to take my fandom out of it. That was fun.
Just so back and forth. It was the hate watch of the Mets and hoping they lose, but yeah, no, that was an extremely fun series. Last fall.
TR coming up clutch. I knew it was close. I think I said 10, but they lost 10 in a row. So 6.5 up in 64 with 12 to play. They lost 10 in a row. They won the last 2, but I think it was Atlanta had to take care of St. Louis and didn't, and so St. Louis hung on. But I know that TR, I know who that is, Tommy. He's definitely going to correct me if I'm wrong with that one. But thanks for the additional info there, buddy. Yeah, I mean, you have a chance to really push the Mets out. The problem is that if you push them out, who comes in? Like the Reds, and you struggled with them recently. It's outside of that Wheeler outing, and you may not have Zach Wheeler the rest of the season. Reds are next up. They're right behind them. Maybe the Cardinals make a push, but they're under 500 and traded a couple pieces. I guess the Diamondbacks, if Marte stays present and healthy, maybe they have a shot to get hot. But 5.5 games, they're the only team outside of the Reds in the current playoff field that even has a plus run differential. So we'll have to see. They traded away some strong starting pitching, so it's going to be tough to see them hang around. But they've hung around a little bit longer than I expected. So if you can push the Mets out, that would be great.
I believe it was Detroit last year that sold off and then made a run to the postseason.
Yeah, it wasn't a full sell, but they traded a couple pieces away at the deadline, thinking that they were a little early, and then they became like the hottest team in baseball.
Arizona trying to copy that template. So
yeah, right.
Kyle, I'm getting ready to drop off. I have the honor of heading down to the ballpark to provide coverage for the Phillies National Series opener tonight. Taijuan Walker against Cavalli. Hopefully, the Phillies are able to get better of the Nationals rookie the second time around. 7 innings, 6 hits, no runs last time, but a very different venue. Yeah, very different venue at Citizens Bank Park. So hoping that the runs themselves stay consistent. We see some offense. Definitely have that every dad in the Philadelphia area feeling of save some runs for the next series. Come on,
yeah,
guys.
right.
So hoping we get a good series. And while I don't necessarily want a close game, I'm a little hopeful to get a Durant entrance tonight.
Yeah, there you go. Pop off on social media, son. That's what you got to
do. Pretty awesome experience. But I leave the stream in your lovely hands. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us for 40 plus minutes, 20 minutes of me rambling, talking about the Phillies. And you can find me below. See Babos Writes for all of our content. And this weekend, we got some awesome coverage coming your way on PSN.
Appreciate you, brother. Hey, man, good luck down there tonight. Get some good interviews, and I'm looking forward to reading your piece.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you guys soon.
See you, Chris. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. I know that you were in wonderful hands with Chris. Who doesn't love Chris? He's a regular on the program, but really stepped up big time and held things down for me running late. Appreciate everybody who is still here. From Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Hey, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Friday indeed. I'm actually heading down with my family as a fan tonight, so I'll be able to wave to Chris from afar. But that being said, we're in the middle of the conversation. Do you have a chance to bury the Mets coming up? Mets really struggling as of late. They're 5-13 so far. So far in August, they've been outscored by 7 runs. They only outscored opponents by 4, 14 and 10 in the month of July. And the big thing that the Mets were carried by early in the season. Yes, their offense was playing very well. Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil. I'm sorry, Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, Brandon Nimmo, and Francisco Lindor all had 20 home runs pretty early in the season. I think before the Phillies got their second 20 home run hitter, they had 4 guys already at the top of that lineup. Top heavy, they saw some struggles just as the Phillies did at the bottom, but really, really impressive start to their offense. The biggest thing for them was their starting pitching ERA was the best in baseball to start the season through the first 2 months. I'm going to pull up the numbers right now, and apologies for running late and not having everything prepared, but the Mets, their struggles go well beyond just somebody being cold in that lineup. Let's look back at the start of the season. So opening day, let's go through the month of May and look at ERA for starting pitchers. ERA for starting pitchers. I'll get there. Don't worry, guys. I swear I will. Oh, that's because I'm looking at the wrong thing. That's why. That's what happens when you run late, guys. Nobody likes dead air. Let's get to it. ERA, there we go. They were the second best in baseball behind the Rangers to start the season, a 2.89 ERA. Even their FIP wasn't crazy, 3.59, a little bit of luck there. Whereas the Phillies, considered one of the best staffs in baseball, was at 3.66, now heavily weighed down by the rough start from Aaron Nola. The Mets, even into June a little bit, were pretty good. Let's take a look at their numbers in June. And that is kind of where it started to get worse for them. But June, Phillies were the best. Mets all the way down to 15th at a 4.30 ERA. But it feels like you can recover from there if you extend from June through today. I mean, really rough go of it for the Mets starting staff. Mets a 4.56 ERA since the start of June. If we bring that to July, the Mets have a 4.74 ERA during that time. Really rough go at things, and they didn't get that starter that they were looking for at the trade deadline because they didn't feel like they wanted to overpay. The starting pitching market was pretty bare, and so therefore the prices were really rising quickly, or the asking prices on those on that talent. But they had Kodai Senga coming off of the injured list. They had Sean Manaea coming off of the injured list, and neither one of those guys has seemed to find their footing since returning. I think Sean Manaea had one good start right off of the injured list, and since then has really struggled. On top of that, having more injuries, Clay Holmes is finally starting to look like a guy who just recently transitioned from reliever to starter. Kodai Senga, despite having a lot of starts, not looking great. Griffin Canning finally looking like the guy that we thought he would. It's pretty remarkable stuff. Yes, they have that deep bullpen, but some of the guys like Frankie Montas they thought was going to be a long man because they had so many arms. Now he may find himself back in the rotation. Same with Paul Blackburn. Guys that if you're going to have to rely on them come playoff time, you're looking at a very different feeling for your team. David Peterson leading the way, and not that he's a bad pitcher by any means, but is David Peterson as your number one really igniting anything inside of Mets fans? I don't think so. A 3.18 ERA, 127 strikeouts on the season in 144 innings. So averaging a little less than a strikeout per inning, but still impressive year for him. But if he's the best you have to offer, that's going to be a little bit tougher. Now, we do know as Phillies fans what happened last season. Didn't matter about the starting pitching. If the Phillies offense doesn't hit, then it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter how good their starting pitching is. If the Mets pitchers can throw the Phillies off enough, or if they get in that mode where Rob Thompson talks about where they all feel like they're trying to do too much, then you get yourself in trouble that way. One interesting thing about maybe guys trying to do too much, we've talked about ad nauseum the outfield rotation after they acquired Harrison Bader at the trade deadline. Rob Thompson said that Nick Castellanos is our starter every day in right field. The other guys are part of a platoon rotation type. They all kind of stepped up since then. Even Weston Wilson, Max Kepler are playing the best ball they've played all year. Brandon Marsh is continuing to play a strong brand of baseball since coming back from the injured list much earlier this season. Harrison Bader, a little struggles since, but he's finding his way out there, and especially with the glove he brings in center field, you can sacrifice a little bit with the stick if you need to while he figures some things out in a new lineup. That being said, we suddenly find ourselves where Nick Castellanos is in a position to be part of that outfield rotation suddenly. And I want to bring up exactly what was said, but he sat 3 times in the last 12 games. It's a tough spot to be in for a guy. And if you remember last week, or if you've listened to me on The Gambler with our guy, Sean Brace, then you know that we've talked about it. It may not be that Nick Castellanos is part of a platoon or part of a rotation, and he's now, every time they face a righty, he's going to be out of the lineup. But he needs a few days off. The guy plays a ton of baseball. He's played a ton of games for this team, played through slumps, played through injuries. And he's the type who wants to go out there every day. He has said in the past that he's a guy who thinks that he works best working through his struggles on the field. But at some point, it's the manager's job to make that adjustment. And you know that Rob Thompson's never going to throw his guys under the bus. He's so good at being a player's manager. We don't know what he says behind closed doors. And he has found a way to get Nick off his feet a couple times a week. And we saw what happened last week. He had two multi-hit games in back-to-back games. Yes, he found himself out of the lineup the next day, but that is something that people will complain about all the time with Rob Thompson. And you look at how it started to pay off for a lot of these guys in the lineup. Edmundo Sosa's playing his best ball because he's facing advantageous situations. Bryson Stott's playing incredible, facing advantageous situations. Weston Wilson, Max Kepler, Brandon Marsh, Nick Castellanos, Harrison Bader, all those guys are facing advantageous positions, and it's really paying off. I know that since the All-Star break, I think this was going into yesterday, Trey Turner's leading the way with a 317 batting average. Brandon Marsh hitting 300. Bryson Stott hitting 274. Some of the other guys, Kepler 215. Sosa's cooled off a little bit, 226. But when you have these other guys really picking things up for the team, you can deal with Nick Castellanos being out of the lineup once in a while. So if you can stay hot or get these guys hot at the right time and figure out what their role needs to be, that's what's going to take you through a playoff series. They do have, and this was a little bit ago, but I want to go back to a comment that Alex put in there because we know Alex knows ball. Do you think they can win the World Series without Wheeler? If they hit, I think they can. Chris Sanchez can anchor a rotation. He's proved it all season long. He's a guy who lives for stuff like this. The type of competitor he is, the way he's worked to turn into we're going to take a flyer on a guy in a trade to now ace of a staff potentially. Rob Thompson said we have 2 aces on this staff, and Sanchez has pitched like that all season long. He's pitched like that all of last season as well. So there's no reason to think that he can't go up against anybody else's number one. That deadly changeup is a game changer for him as a starting pitcher. And then if you start to figure some things out with Luzardo, with Suarez, if they can be good for 4 or 5, they don't need to go 6 or 7 like they have all season in the playoffs, because you'll probably turn to a Taijuan Walker and Aaron Nola to eat up 2 innings. And then I know you won't have Alvarado, but you're back into the bullpen with Strahm, Kerkering, and Duran has really started to figure things out and allows you to shorten the game. We'll have to see what kind of adjustments they make and who gets the call up come September. My guess is it'll be Otto Kemp and Max, not Max Lazar, who was just sent down for the Phillies. Maybe it was Max Lazar. Was it? We'll look. But yeah, I think that they can win I think that they can win in the playoffs without Wheeler. It's a crazy thing to say, but if they hit like they have the last the majority of the last 2 weeks, there's no reason that they can't play with anybody. You faced two of the best pitching staffs in baseball in Texas, swept them in their house, and Seattle swept them in your own house. To me, that's pretty strong stuff. It was Max Lazar. Max Lazar was the guy who got sent down for Hoffman and Alvarado. So I think Lazar will probably be the guy to come back up. And Alex did correct himself in the comments, playoff rotation. He hasn't pitched his way back into it. I think you're at a point now where the way he's pitched this year, he has to re-earn that spot. And I think that starting in next season, you're assuming that he's going to have one of those spots again. But if he hasn't started to figure it out by then, you can't justify putting him out there. Just like you paid a lot of money for Taijuan Walker. He goes out and wins you, 15 games his first year in a Phillies uniform, doesn't pitch at all in the postseason. He had to go out there and earn it every single day, and there were just guys pitching better than him. It's not necessarily a slight on Nola. And you know that he's going to make the roster because he has had postseason success. However, it's not a guarantee. If you're not pitching well enough, I mean, that's just that. You don't guarantee a spot when you're looking for a championship. And Alex, I know you know that. I don't mean to talk down to you at all, but there's no guarantee for anything here when you're trying to fight for a World Series. It's just that simple. I know that maybe they've given guys a little bit of run before. Maybe you kept a struggling hitter in there a little bit longer than you should have. They have so much depth right now that I think they're going to push the right buttons and make sure that they are in the right position to succeed in the playoffs. So we're going to have to see what that looks like. I want to bring up Nola's postseason number because, man, people want to talk about, September Nola, and he kind of broke that mold last season. I want to look at what his postseason numbers are because he has a lot of experience at this point. Let's see. A 4.02 ERA, but that's coming off of a 4 earned run effort through 5 innings last season. He has 4 shutouts in the postseason under his belt. He does have, it looks like mostly a mixed bag, but let's see what the totals are here. If you exclude a 3.70 ERA in the postseason. So he has some strong performances, has had some not so strong performances. San Diego, if you remember, got to him pretty good in 2022. Houston got him good in one of the games that he pitched against them. So maybe not the best World Series performance, but other than that, the guy has shown up, and you need that postseason experience on the roster. He's a guy who can impart wisdom on the younger guys and obviously give you some big innings, even if it's out of the pen if you really need it. So I assumed that he was going to be a guy who slides right back in there, but if he continues to struggle and after returning has an ERA north of 5, I don't think you can justify putting him in the rotation, especially if Suarez and Luzardo have started to figure things out. Maybe he's your 4th guy in a 7-game series, depending what happens with Wheeler. I am actively working under the assumption that the Phillies will be without Zach Wheeler the rest of the season. And maybe they'll prove me wrong and he'll make some miraculous superhero Bryce Harper type recovery, but this is a very different situation. It's not a sore. It's much more than a sore shoulder. It's, how do I stay healthy for the long term for my family, and that should be the priority for Zach Wheeler. So, I think that they can. I think they can do it, though, Alex. I mean, obviously, feel free to jump in the comments and tell me if you feel differently, but I think that they can really get it done, even if Zach Wheeler's not there. It's obviously going to be more of a challenge, and they need to hit the way that they hit this week for that to be the case, but it really is. It's a tough call. Can they do it? If the offense is clicking, of course they can. But we've seen what has played in the last couple of years. So if they have guys, if JT continues to hit how he's hitting right now, Trey is hitting a very different style of ball. Brandon Marsh, now he's been slugging so much, he's in the middle of the lineup. If Stock can hit this well at the bottom, even if he hits you 260, 270 in the playoffs, that's a huge improvement over 233 Gold Glove defense at second base. There's no reason to think with their combination of defense, and if they can hit anything close to what they hit against Seattle, that's a pretty good thing that they'll have. Let's see. Looking at the comments here, Tommy, I'll bring yours up in a second as well. Getting a tweet out, letting the people know we're still on here. I know we're normally wrapping up around now, but because I joined late, I'm going to take you guys as far as you'll let me. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, I think that they can do it. Let's bring up Tommy's comment real quick. Do you assume the Phillies will try to manage Luzardo's innings in September if they think he must be a playoff starter because Nola isn't capable? I think they had every intention of. I'm going to leave it up here for those who are joining now, but I think that their intent was to manage it for everybody. They were going to go to a 6-man rotation. They wanted to manage Wheeler a little bit, even though he hates pitching on extended rest. They know the amount of innings that Sanchez has put up, the way that Suarez has struggled, especially after that 6th inning recently. You know, he goes back out there and seems to have hit a wall, even if his pitch count is low. Luzardo, not necessarily always the same thing, but you saw it the other day where he had 83 pitches and then ends up loading the bases before recording it out and getting taken out of the game. The tough part is, what do you do now that you're down? I mean, do they force somebody up here? Do they force Griff McGarry or Andrew Painter up with a little less pressure? Like, hey, you're just up here to eat one, get our guys some extra rest. Maybe I think one way that they can do it is really you don't want to push a guy so far that it leads to injury, but pushing Jose Alvarado a little bit. I remember there was a lot of times last season where I would ask Rob Thompson after a game, hey, Alvarado was a guy who came up for you and, you know, he threw 7 pitches to get out of a jam. And then you went to the next guy in the next inning and he thought to keeping him in there. And he always talked about, well, one, you know, high intensity pitches, especially on a bullpen arm, can really drain you. And then on top of that, the emotional dump that happens. But you might have to push him a little bit more to help give some of your bullpen arms who have been overtaxed and some of your starters a little bit of an extra rest. And they're actually at a spot now where they can rotate through some guys. Back when they had Jose Ruiz and Carlos Hernandez and didn't have anybody with options earlier in the season, it felt like they were kind of stuck with who they had. And recently, because they have some guys with options, so they've been able to rotate through some arms. So I think you're going to see that a little bit more. Obviously, we know how good Lehigh Valley is, so they'll have a playoff race to worry about themselves. But the Phillies will do what they can to manage rotating some guys in as well to help give those starters a little bit of a break, whether it's a Seth Johnson coming back up to eat some innings, some multiple innings in an appearance. You know, they'll probably call up some 2-inning guys here and there just to give some guys some extra rest, maybe a bullpen game if they don't want to rush Painter or McGarry. So there are some options, TR, but I definitely think that will happen. I think that they will do what they can. It's going to look a little bit different than having a 6-man, but I think that they're going to do what they can to manage the innings. Obviously, that's going to be a concern for them. They talked about it. They talked about going to 6-man, so we'll have to see what that looks like. Everybody, thank you again for hanging out with us all for the first hour. I know that first half hour was solo Chris show, and Chris carried us. Make sure you follow him at CBabos Writes. He's covering the game for PSN down at the ballpark. Appreciate all the love and support of him. Appreciate you guys sticking around now that I've joined and we've switched over to a solo Fisher show. Cade Cavalli, the rookie for Washington, going tonight against Taijuan Walker. Taijuan Walker has been absolutely lights out as of late. Can't really argue with the results that guy's given you. He's filled a pivotal role without complaining. The guy is really something special this year, especially after what you saw from him last season. For him to respond this way is really, really impressive, and you got to give the guy a lot of credit. Tomorrow is going to be a big one, though. Tomorrow I'm going to be down at the stadium covering Aaron Nola's second start coming off the injured list. A 6.92 ERA, not his best work. Not his best work last time out either. Let's look at the last game just as a reminder for folks. August 17th against Washington, that same squad, 2 1/3 innings, 6 earned runs, only 4 strikeouts to 1 walk, 7 hits. They were just pounding the ball off of, not even a home run. They just pounded in. Some stranded runners that came in as well, credited to Nola. But hopefully it's deep breath moment. It's back in the friendly confines, and you just go with it. I don't know what the position is there, but yeah, you hope that he can figure it out against a lineup like the Nationals, even though they took care of business against the Mets the last few days. You'd hope that Aaron Nola could figure some things out against that young squad. Jake Irvin going on Sunday. Some not so great numbers, of 5.30 ERA for Jake Irvin. And we know how the Phillies have crushed right-handed pitching all season. So the Saturday game could be a rough one. Mitchell Parker, even though his numbers aren't great, 7-13 with a 5.83 ERA. Phillies have struggled with lefties at times. The right guys are hot right now, though. So I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive overall in a moment. But how about getting Painter up before the playoff roster cutoff, just in case you need him more than you currently think? It's an idea, Alex. I can't really argue with the sentiment we've talked about. And Dave Dombrowski himself has talked about the depth of starting pitching may be used out of the bullpen and will have to be used out of the bullpen to help support them. You saw when he did that with the Red Sox. It's something to consider. I mean, for sure, they don't want to rush him and put him in a position where he feels like a lot of pressure, which makes sense. He hasn't really figured it out against AAA hitting as of yet. He's shown some flashes. Kid's still really young, still developmental, coming off of that rough Tommy John surgery and the setback that he faced. So we're gonna have to see what happens with him. It would be interesting to call him up before that cutoff to get him playoff eligibility, though. It might be something they're considering. Maybe they send down, I don't know who has options at the moment, but maybe they send somebody down just for a day, call them up August 31st to get that eligibility. And if you got to send him back down, you do. That does start his clock a little earlier than they intended to, but I think you're at the point now where next year would still be his rookie year as far as not only his eligibility, but also for his contract situation as well. So they might be okay doing that. I know that we saw similar things with David Price. When he got called up by Tampa in back in the mid 2000s, or I think it might have been 2008. Anyway, they called up David Price, and he had some run out of the pen, some exciting postseason moments, and then ended up being the guy for years to come out of that rotation for a few strong playoff teams. Why is his velocity floating between 89 and 91? That is a great question. I haven't been able to do a deep dive. I don't even know what I would be looking for. My assumption is that it's just fatigue. The guy, we've talked about how he's a machine, how much he's pitched over the last few years. He's one of the leaders across the league in innings pitched every season. And since he's joined the league, he has, I think it's him and Garrett Cole are number 1 and number 2 as far as innings pitched for starting pitchers. So that stuff catches up to you after a while. It doesn't matter that you're not throwing 98. He's a guy who's floated around 93, topping out at 95. But to be 89 to 91 is a little troubling. Could be just arm fatigue. Could be that he needs to evolve and become a different pitcher now. We saw that with Taijuan Walker. Walker's fastball was 93 to 95. Last year, it struggled to consistently get to 90, 91, and he had to adjust. How he pitched. A great piece from our guy, Ben, over at PSN, diving into what has made him successful. He's throwing the splitter much less, has almost abandoned the four-seamer and is going cutter heavy. This really helps. So, maybe Nola just needs to attack a different way. And I'm sure that JT and the pitching coaches are working closely with him to figure out exactly what's plaguing him. But hopefully, for his own sake, he's able to figure that out fast. For the Phillies' sake, hope that he's able to figure that out fast, because obviously he's going to be an important piece of this Phillies run here. We talked about it a little bit already. Excuse me. The Phillies have 10 in a row against their division. You have the 3 this weekend against Washington. And then, of course, they go up to New York on Monday for 3 in New York. They come back home for 4 against Atlanta. So not drastic travels, home, New York, back. And then they hop on a bird, go out to Milwaukee and take on the daunting Milwaukee Brewers. That team has been firing on all cylinders. The only 80-win team in the majors. They have been really, really strong this season. Let's see what's made that. We know what's made them hot. They play a different brand of baseball than everybody else. That sounds silly to just say, but they really do play. They're the definition of team baseball. They're really fun to watch. I've said this a lot. I'm going to tell the short version. I watched that free game, Mizorowski versus Skeens, and I saw what they were able to do against Skeens, driving him out of the game early. Skeens has an even more dominant ERA than it appears if you take out his games against the Milwaukee Brewers. He has like a 5.40 ERA against the Brewers this season. It's crazy. They've really just grind on you, and they've only gotten stronger, added more young pitching, got Brandon Woodruff back. They're firing on all cylinders, and if they can stay elite and stay in that not trying to do too much mode, as Rob Thompson likes to call it, if they can stay in that team first, fall in love with the team, next guy up mentality, hey, I know I'm going to get on and get in motion so that guy can do his job because my job is what it is here. And I feel like everybody in that lineup really has that mentality. When they're leading off, they want to get on for the next guy. It doesn't matter if they're normally a slugger or not. They want to do what they can to have big innings and allow innings to really to never spiral the other way. You know, they like to add crooked numbers up on the scoreboard, and it seemed to be working for them. They started the season playing pretty average, got some reinforcements, brought up Mizorowski, got some other young pitchers up, young relief pitchers up, got Brandon Woodruff back. They haven't lost 10 games in a month since the calendar turned to June. 16-9 in June, 17-7 in July, 16-4 in August with a plus 70 run differential in the month of August. Plus 70, not 17, not 1-7, 7-0 for you guys. 7-0. Insane what the Milwaukee Brewers have been doing. And if you're not just a Phillies fan, if you're a big baseball fan, I recommend anytime you get a chance to watch them because it really is. It's a different brand of baseball. You're watching a different game. You're watching something from the 2000s instead of the 2020s. It's pretty incredible. Alex, yeah, that'll be really fun. We know how good he is at throwing guys out. We know how good Bryson and Trey are at putting good tags down, and they love to run. So watching the Brewers try to run on JT for a few days is going to be fun. The Phillies should be able to take care of these divisional games, and I know that that's easy to say. The divisional games are always tougher, but we know how much the Nationals have struggled. We know how much the Braves have struggled. If they can take 2 of 3 from the Mets, they're putting themselves in a really good position. Again, going into that Milwaukee series, they might be up 10 games. They might be up double digits in the division by that point. I want to take a look at the Mets' upcoming schedule just to confirm that, because I don't think that they're super light. Let's take a look at the Mets' upcoming schedule. I appreciate everybody sticking around for a little bit of a longer episode here today. They're in Atlanta, so they have 3 at Atlanta, 3 in Philly, and then, at home versus Philly, and then 4 at home versus Miami. So that will be a little bit of a tougher one. Let's look at how they've done against the division, because I want to take a look at both teams against the division. They're both playing a lot of divisional games coming up. Mets, and then they hop on a plane and go to Detroit and Cincinnati, 2 strong teams. They have to come back to the East Coast, play Philly. They have Philly, Texas, San Diego. Not a fun stretch in the middle of September. Of course, and then they have the Cubs before it's all said and done. The Cubs, who suddenly are fighting for a wild card spot instead of leading that division at the NL Central as they did all season. So let's take a look at how they've done in the division. The Mets are 4-2 against Miami. They are 3-7 against Atlanta. Woof, that's 7-9 overall. 4-2 against Philly. Okay, we know. So 11-11 overall. Washington 6-4. Okay, so 17-15 overall, but their struggles as of late changed the game for sure. And if they can figure out some things for the starting pitching, maybe it's a different story. But we're gonna have to see how that plays out. Really, really tough stretch of it for the Mets the rest of the way. Not an easy thing to overcome. The Phillies, as we've mentioned, the 10 games, then Milwaukee, then it's 3 at Miami, 4 at home against the Mets once again, and then 3 at home against Kansas City. They have to do a West Coast trip before they come back for an easy close to the season with the Miami Marlins and the Minnesota Twins. But the Dodgers and Arizona, I don't care if Arizona's out of it. They're still a strong team. The Dodgers, we know how good they are, and they're fighting for that division, so every win is going to mean a little bit more to them. If the Phillies really have locked up that NL East, maybe they can maybe not on purpose, but maybe they take the foot off the gas a little bit there. Something to watch. But extremely strong series against the Mariners. You can't really complain about that. The interesting thing will be to see what they can do moving forward. Nick Castellanos has been a hot topic for the Phillies. Let's see what they've just looking for the latest. So Rob Thompson told Nick Castellanos that he was going to be part of the outfield rotation. I think he's still going to end up with the majority of the at-bats. But he told Tim Kelly of On Pattison that he told Rob Thompson, whatever you need. So to me, that's as simple as you're going to get it from Nick. I think when he's very bothered, he's a guy who almost over-philosophizes. That's where he gets his philosophizes. Anyway, that's where you get a lot of your fun quotes from Nick over the years, has been when he's either annoyed at the reporter or frustrated with his performance. And if he's given a straight up whatever you need, that's a veteran who recognizes not only where he is, but how good his other guys are playing. I think he knows that he's going to have priority once it comes to the postseason, unless something goes terribly wrong the rest of the year. But Nick, yeah, I mean, he's been in a rough spot. I was looking at this with my brother. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but a lot has been said over the years about how his first two pitches, he chases those first two pitches heavy. And across the league, when you put the first two pitches in contact, slugging is really, really strong. I think it's like above 850 across the league. It's like in the mid 600s from three down. And pitching's been really good this year. Nick, it's even more extreme. His OPS is above 900 on the first two pitches, and it's below 600 the other way around. And I'm curious to see, when his chase rate ticked up a little bit, he started hitting the ball really hard, and it became controlled aggression is the way that I was talking about it. And it almost seems like it's become uncontrolled aggression. He's swinging. Once he started seeing that success, and again, I don't think it's consciously viewing it this way, but even subconsciously, he saw the success he had swinging a little more aggressively and has almost gone too far the other way. He's a veteran guy who's going to be able to figure it back and hopefully tick back into that zone where he can be a strong 5, 6, or 7 hole if you need him to be. I mean, if Nick Castellanos hitting well, doesn't have to be lights out, but if he's hitting well in the 7 hole, can you really complain about that? If JT's hitting how he's hitting, if Marsh is hitting how he's hitting, and all of a sudden Castellanos is 6 or 7 in that lineup with Bone back in the middle, you're in pretty good hands if that's the case. Now, if it's 7, despite a lot of other people struggling, that's where you get into trouble. So, yeah, Nick is going to be the interesting story to watch this weekend. The biggest thing for me is definitely watching Aaron Nola tomorrow. And as I mentioned, I'll be down at the ballpark, so make sure you give me a follow at Kyle Fisher 405 right here, not only on X, on Blue Sky, on IG. And then Kyle Fisher Media on YouTube. I put all the shows from here over there as well. Just appreciate all the love and support, guys. Appreciate all the comments, everybody. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Alex, if you're still there, I'm going to give you one last chance to throw in a topic before I wrap things up with just looking at the pitching matchups for this weekend. So tell me what you got, if you have anything, while I look up the pitching details for this weekend. Let's take a look. Washington. We know Cavalli. Let's get Cavalli. And Cavalli, so he's only faced the Phillies that one game, allowed 7 hits, 5 Ks, 269 average versus the guy. 2 extra base hits, a double from Marsh, a double from Turner. But he was able to limit the damage overall. No walks, didn't allow a single run to cross the plate. I know our guy Chris went into detail on his performance against Philly last week. 7 innings, his best start of the season. Yes, the 7 hits, but 12 ground balls. If they can start lifting the ball a little bit against Cavalli, that should be good. When he gave up, the only game he gave up runs was against Kansas City. He gave up 4 earned runs across 5 innings, and he was more fly balls than ground balls, 11 fly balls to 7 ground ball outs. So if you can start lifting the ball on him a little bit, that should be a nice turnout for the Phillies. How about Gore? Okay, we're going to bring that up. How about Gore? What's your opinion on Mackenzie Gore so far this season? I mean, we know how good he started. He is a guy who has shown flashes in the past. Mackenzie Gore. Let's look at how his numbers have, because I saw that he was back above a 4 ERA. So I want to take a look at his splits, see if there's anything that sticks out. Maybe for pitches better on the road this season, 3.59. So maybe he's a guy who needs a little juice behind him. A 4.73 ERA at home. I know that they don't necessarily have the strongest fan base out there. May and June pitched really well. July has really struggled. A 6.75, a 6.05 so far in August. So not ideal for Gore. But if he can put together a couple more months like he did May and June with sub-3 ERAs, even if he has a rough month here and there, he's a guy who should be good for a long time. You know, you saw what he did against the Phillies to open the season. I know that's more on the Phillies than anything, with 13 Ks against a strong Phillies lineup. That's awesome. The only other time he had double-digit Ks was against the Rockies, so take that as you will. But he's racked up plenty of strikeouts on the season, 170 strikeouts. Yeah, I mean, I like what I've seen from him. You know, I don't know too much about the in and out. Obviously, it's been a little bit of a struggle as of late, but he's a guy where every time he's in the lineup, I'm a little concerned for the Phillies because of how well he's handled them in the past. So, yeah, I don't know if I would say he's been stellar, but I kind of expected another step forward after that strong sub-4 ERA last season. He seems to be around the same place. Improvements in allowing runners, but not a drastic enough one to really bring that ERA down. It's tough to play in Washington. They're in a spot where they're rebuilding still, so at least he has a little bit of time to recover. I don't know what his contract situation is, though. I know that there was rumors about him potentially being a piece that could have been moved at the deadline, but I think they have plenty of years of control here. Yeah, 2 more years of control after this season under arbitration. So that's when a lot of these guys, James Wood, CJ Abrams, a lot of these young cats that they have, I think the other outfielder, I forget his name, but some of their top prospects that have been called up recently, that should be when those guys really start hitting their groove. It'd be interesting to see if they do decide to move him in the offseason. Oh, there it is, right from Alex. He'll be traded in the offseason. Maybe. I mean, if they get a haul, if they get something similar to what they did for Max Scherzer, I know that it was a Scherzer and Turner, but that was a midseason trade. If they get something for 2 years of control for a young starter who's shown a lot of potential, especially a left-handed starter, there's going to be some guys, maybe the team that loses out on Ranger Suarez pivots and goes to the Nationals and is willing to give a ransom for Mackenzie Gore. Who knows? I know it's a little bit different, trading prospects instead of just paying money, but we'll see. I like Gore. It was a good addition as part of that Soto trade. I'd be interested to see if they do hang on to him. I think that gives them a shot to compete in the next 2 years if they keep him as a headliner of that rotation, but they may feel like they are not quite there yet, and they need a couple more years for these young guys. And if they can get another, he's 26, not that that's old, but if they can get a 23-year-old starter in return, maybe they feel like that's better with a couple extra years of control. So that Gore could be a guy who's moved. I think somebody will overpay for the talent and think that they can bring him in and figure some things out before that contract's up. So maybe a team like the Yankees or maybe a team like the Dodgers, they always seem to trade for pitching. Hell, maybe San Diego trades back for him. Who knows? They like to trade and save money where they can. So maybe they'll allow a veteran to walk and bring in Mackenzie Gore. That would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. A great question from Alex here. Why do the Nats act like a small market team? It's probably their ownership. There's too many teams that act like a small market team. The Miami Marlins act like a small market team. Tampa Bay, I know that their owners have figured it out, right? But if they spent, now granted, the one time they spent money, the guy, ended up being a creep and getting arrested. But they are a team that's been able to develop and just churn through. Minnesota is a similar situation. They don't like to spend money. I'm sure that they could spend a little bit more than they have. And I know that they are truly small market versus DC, but not quite the Dodgers situation, although the Dodgers used to act a little small market before the new ownership came in, despite being big, because the argument was, well, there's so much to do in LA. People don't care about sports the same way. It could be something like that where, that is a Commanders town and every other sport is secondary. And if they're not going to compete, if they don't have any superstars, if they keep letting their superstars go, why do we keep going? And then you feel like, well, we really have to pinch pennies around here and hope that we can continue to develop players because people aren't showing up. And even when they had stars, it wasn't always a packed ballpark. So, and let's see, perfect example. Phillies used to act like a small market team a lot. It's all about ownership. And if people show up, owners may change their tune, but it really does come down to ownership. And there's a lot of owners who treat it like a toy more than they are actively trying to win. It's look at my yacht, look at my baseball team more than it is I own a baseball team and plan on winning a championship. And I'm not saying that that's how their owner is, but it definitely feels that a little bit. Burned a little bit on the Strasburg deal and are still paying him. Yeah, I mean, they're also still paying Max Scherzer, I believe. I think that he had half of his money deferred. They're still paying Scherzer a bit despite him not pitching. I think he's pitched on 3 or 4 teams since then. So, when they did decide to spend big, they couldn't figure out a deal for the guys who got really expensive, like Turner, Harper, and Schwarber. But when they paid Scherzer, it didn't work out in their. Well, I guess it did. Whatever, they won a championship. But Scherzer and Strasburg, it didn't work out long term. I'm trying to think of who else. Not every prospect turns into Ryan Zimmerman. They had some luck with some guys there. They didn't afford Anthony Rendon. He was a postseason hero. I know it hasn't worked out for the Angels either, but he was a guy that they weren't able to keep around, who was a fan favorite and had a couple really strong seasons. So it'll be interesting to see what he looks like. I want to take a look at Mitchell Parker's numbers for the Saturday matchup before we wrap up here, I should say. Appreciate everybody hanging out. We're going to get to the rest of this National Series, and then we're going to say goodbye. And again, make sure you guys give Chris Babos at C Babos Writes a nice follow to see how he does, or to follow all the action live and check him out down there. So let's take a look at Mitchell Parker. I can't spell Mitchell Parker. There we go. Batter versus pitcher. Now, Harrison Bader 0 for 5, but Alec Boehm 2 for 7 with 2 home runs. If you're a betting person, keep an eye out. We got Castellanos is 2 for 5 against the left-hander. Harper 4 for 6, which is great. 2 walks as well. Expect him to have a nice weekend. Brandon Marsh 1 for 2. Schwarber 3 for 8, not even with a home run, just straight up 3 for 8, 3 singles against Parker. Sosa has a hit off him. Stott has a hit off him in 5 at-bats. Trey Turner 3 for 4, 2 ribbies and a walk. So these guys have seen Mitchell Parker well. I want to see what as far as starts against Philly, because last week, they put up big numbers against him last week. 5 earned runs over 1 2/3 innings. That was really the bludgeoning to make up for those struggles from Aaron Nola. So they picked him up big time to win that game 11-9. So that was the Mitchell Parker start, and then Jake Irvin. I want to take a deeper look at Jake Irvin because for some reason I feel like he's pitched well against the Phillies. Let's take a look here. Harrison Bader has 5 hits and 6 at-bats. I'll take that all day. I know he hasn't always been part of the squad here, but Boehm 4 for 16 at 250 batting average. The Bryce Harper 4 for 11, much stronger. Kepler 2 for 7, both home runs. Brandon Marsh 3 for 10, a home run. JT 6 for 15, a home run. Kyle Schwarber 3 for 18, a home run. So Bryson Stott has 2 homers against him, is 7 for 18, hitting .389. Wow. Weston Wilson 1 for 2 with a double even. So if he gets in there against Jake Irvin. But let's take a look at his splits right now. He is pitching well against righties, but righties still have a 409 slugging, a 707 OPS, 890 OPS for the left-handers. So expect Max Kepler, Brandon Marsh to get a lot of run against that guy, I would think, especially if they falter in one of the first 2 games and need that to win the series. I would think you would go all out lefties against Jake Irvin. So again, I don't know if you guys have anything that you want to that your focus is this weekend, but my focus is going to be, what does Aaron Nola show his second time around coming off the injured list, second time against the same team that he faced on Sunday and struggled against? Is it a different response at home? I'll be interested to see what kind of reaction the fans give him. I would hope that it's a positive one because of all the things he's done well here over the years. So it's going to be good to see Aaron Nola take the mound at Citizens Bank Park once again. Hopefully something can get him juiced up and galvanized a little bit before they head to New York to take on Kodai Senga and the Mets. And, of course, Juan Soto. But Kodai Senga, the starter, scheduled for Monday. Make sure you keep it locked in to Philly Sports Network, at Philadelphia SN on X, at Philly Sports Net on Blue Sky. Like I said, my guy Chris Babos will be in the box today, and on Sunday, I will be in the box on Saturday. So make sure you're following us closely at Kyle Fisher 45. We appreciate the love. We're at the hour and a half, 90 minutes in, and the crowd kept growing. We appreciate the love and support, but we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. We got to get myself ready and the fam ready to run down to the stadium and take in some Phillies action. Appreciate all you guys. Like I said, stay locked in, and we will catch you guys next week on Alley Talk, normal time, 2 p.m. Appreciate you guys, and we will see you next week.